Alright, in this video we will look at another operation that we can perform on a given two-dimensional array. Here we will search for a given value in the array. This means that we will check that if a given value exists in an array or not. So let's say we have a two-dimensional array like this, and we want to check that if 44 exists in this array or not. So there are many algorithms available for searching two-dimensional array, but here we will look at a linear search. In linear search, we will need to search through every element in the array and check that if the current element is the element that we are looking for. It continues until we find the element that we are looking for. So in this case, as we did in traversal, first we are going to the first row of this two-dimensional array, then first we will loop through the first row, then the second row, then the third row. Now every time when we are visiting a set, we are going to check that if this is the element that we are looking for or not. Now in this case, we are looking for 44. So we are starting from the first row and checking that if this is the element that we are looking for. You see that it's not. We are continuing to the second cell. Is this the element that we are looking for? You see that it's not. Then we are continuing to the third cell, then fourth cell. Then after finishing first row, we are continuing to the second row. Now in the second row, we are checking first column. We see that this is not the element that we are looking for. Then we are continuing to the second column. Now we see that this is not the element that we are looking for. Then we are continuing to this element, which is third column over here. Now when we reach this element, we see that this is the element that we are looking for. So we are printing out to the console saying that this element is located at the row of 1, which shows the index of this row. So it starts from 0 and 1 is the index of this row. And then column is 2. So it starts from 0, 1, 2, and it is located at the second column over here. So after finding element, we are printing out to the console the index of this value over here. Now based on this logic, let's create a method in two-dimensional array class for searching a value in two-dimensional array. Now as you remember, in our previous lecture we have created two-dimensional class over here, and in this class first we have created our constructor method, then we have created a method which is inserting a value to this two-dimensional array, then we have created a method to access a value from this two-dimensional array, then we have created method for traversing array. Now in this lecture we are going to create a method which is searching for a single value from this two-dimensional array. So the name of method will be searching value. So I'm going to declare our method like this: public void searching value. So here, as you remember, we have created our array as a type of integer. So this means that we are going to look in this array for the type of integer. So as a parameter, it's going to take integer and value. So this is the value that we are going to look that if this exists in this array or not. Now then, the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to loop through this array over here that we created and check that if the element exists over there or not. Now as you remember, when we are traversing through array, we have written our loop like this. First we start to loop through the rows because we will loop first row, then the second row, then the third row, and it continues like this. Then inside each row we are going to loop through the columns over here. So the same thing will be applicable over here. So that's why our first loop will be looping through rows. So I will write our loop like this: for int row index start from 0, then it continues until the number of rows. So we know that in two-dimensional array, length function returns the number of rows. So it will be increased by 1 every time. Then inside this loop, we are going to write another loop which is looping through columns. So it's going to be like this. So same thing is applicable over here. Column starts from the index of 0 and it continues until the number of columns. So to find the number of columns in case of two-dimensional array in Java, we are writing array name, then index of 0, then dot length function. So if we write it without this, it's returning the number of rows. If we write it with the index of 0, it is returning the number of columns. And in each iteration, it's going to be increased by 1. So I'm going to put column plus plus. So basically this part is similar to the traversing of two-dimensional array, but inside this loop we are going to put if condition over here because we are looking for a value. Now in this case we are going to put our if condition like this: if ARR, which is the array name, with the index of row, which is coming from here, from this outer loop, and with the index of column, equals to value. This value comes from this parameter over here. Then in this case, we are going to print out to the console saying that the value is found at this location. So I'm going to put like this: value is found at the row. It's going to be like this. I will put plus over here, which is row, plus is going to be column. So with this we are printing out to the console saying that value is found at this row and at this column. Then we need to stop our loop over here, so that's why I'm going to put return. Then if we loop through all elements of the array and we haven't found the value that we are looking for, in this case we need to return to the console saying that the value is not found. So in this case I'm going to print to the console saying that the value is not found. Now with this we have finished our method. Basically what we are doing over here, we are searching through the two-dimensional array and checking that if this value exists over here or not. Now let's see how this is working in the practice. So as you remember, we have created an instance of two-dimensional array class over here and we have inserted these values over here. Then I'm going to just delete this part. So I'm going to call search value method. For example, we are going to search for 20. Now we know that 20 is located at the row of 0 at the column of 1. Now if we run this one, it should return something like this. So it should return these values from here. So when we run our code, now you see that first it's inserting the elements over here, then it's printing out to the console saying that the value is found at row 0 and column 1. So we have inserted 20 to this location, so it's found at this location. Now if you put different number over here, for example 50, and run our code, we know that 50 is not exist in our array, so if we run it, it should say that the value is not found in the array. Now after running it, you see that it returns message saying that the value is not found. So this means that 50 is not exist in our array over here. So this is how the searching a value works in two-dimensional array. So let's see what's the time and space complexity for this method over here. Now to find the time complexity of any given method, we have to start from the first line of code. So in the first line of code, we have a loop which is looping through all rows of this two-dimensional array. So if the number of rows is m, so the time complexity for this loop will be om. Now then inside this loop we have another loop, nested loop, which is looping through the columns of this array over here. So if the number of columns is n, so the time complexity will be on. Now then inside this loop we have if condition over here. So with this if condition we are checking if the current cell is equal to the value or not. So this if condition will take O1 time complexity. Then inside this if condition we are printing out to the console a message. So this one also will take O1 time complexity because this operation is not time consuming operation. Then at the end we are printing another message saying that the value is not found. So we know that printing message to the console also takes O1 time complexity. Now if we combine all these complexities over here, we are getting OMN time complexity. Because we have nested loops over here, so for each row we are searching through the all columns. So that's why we have to multiply these complexities over here. So the time complexity will be OMN. Now the space complexity is O1 because in this case an extra memory is not required to perform searching operation over here. So that's why space complexity is O1. Now with this we have come to the end of this lecture, so hopefully everything is clear about searching value in two-dimensional array. Now see you in the next lecture.